Today we look at the archer. The archer is a close to high-ranged, high-damage hide class who specializes in denying enemy movement and dealing high damage. Its ability, the quiver, fires multiple magic arrows that has the ability to bypass obstacles and paralyze enemies, stopping them in their tracks, and become vulnerable to more damage. Due to the nature of the archer, it is often reserved within the middle of the group, providing group support by paralyzing enemies and eliminating groups of PNs. So you want to play the archer? Well, for starters, we should look at the stats. For an 8/8 archer, the most notable stats are attack whilst retaining an average build. This supports the archer's offensive speciality via its reliance on its bow and quiver, especially since the bow has the ability to pierce enemies in combination with its quiver. It can engage and deal with any horde of enemies fairly quickly. When starting out as the archer, it is important to note that the quiver's projectile is rather thin and slow. As the quiver often fires multiple arrows, it is not a bad idea to pre-fire your quiver when advancing into new areas, especially in narrow spaces. This can catch enemies out of view, making it easier to engage them. It's time to look at the weapons of the archer, in which he has many. Bow users can always use the tiered bows like the bow of Covet Havens, with the ability to pierce enemies and have some armor-piercing capability. It's a consistent weapon against all enemy types no matter the horde. However, the bow's full effectiveness is limited to sword range. It may be good to consider longer-ranged options. The longbows are a subclass of the tiered bows. These are long-ranged options and fires a burst of arrows that deals consistent damage across all ranges. Its burst firing mechanic makes the weapon unwieldy to use at shorter ranges, and the longbows do not pierce enemies. Regardless, these can be an effective substitute where distance is a priority. Alternatively, the slow but high damage sniper bows like the Doom bow from the Undead Lair, the Resplendent bow from the Ancient Ruins or the likes can offer consistent high damage across all defenses and distances. Although they suffer with a drastically lowered fire rate, these bows can offer penetrating capabilities through hordes unlike the tiered longbows. The Coral bow from the Ocean Trench is a decent alternative to the bows, losing out on armor piercing but retaining its enemy penetration. The bow fires two main arrows in a tight V formation. Its true range further than that of the tiered bows and its damage comparable to the T12 bow. It is great for its clearing capabilities and an alternative to the tiered variants. The Bramble bow from the Forest Maze is a great weapon to start out as an archer. An early bow that can deal good damage to weak foes, this bow can serve as a supplement until the T8 bow. You should aspire to obtain one of the high damage bows such as the Bow of the Void, Leaf bow from the Woodland Labyrinth, Thousand Shot from the Puppet Master's Encore, the Brigenya bow from the Magic Woods or the Deathless Crossbow from the Cursed Library. These single-shot bows are great against bosses and reliable against strong enemies, especially the Leaf bow, a weapon that rivals the endgame bows. If you are afraid of the exalted dungeons, try obtain the Leaf bow instead. The archer's ability inflicts both the paralysis status effect and the vulnerable effect. The paralysis status is very strong in shutting down the movement of troublesome peons and both Oryx 1 and 2 during the raid in his castle, whilst the vulnerable effect increases damage by 10% on the enemy. These two effects are very strong and thus it is worthwhile to keep the tiered quivers for general uses. However, most high-tier bosses and some exalted peons may be immune to paralyze. For moments like these, you will need to kill them or inflict them with another status quickly. Quivers that deal great damage such as Mad Javelin, an Agents of Oryx ability, Quiver of Shadows from the Void or Sinister Syringes from the Spectral Penitentiary are excellent choices. Alternatively, inflicting slow from the Embellished Quiver from the Ancient Ruins, the Behemoth Quivers from the Corrupted Bramblethorn or Behemoth Bosses from the Overworld, and the QUIVE are from High-Tech Terror are good alternatives if paralyze is not applicable. The Quiver of Shrieking Spectres, part of the Phantom Archer set and drops from the Cursed Library, explodes a radius around you which slows down enemies while speeding yourself up. Great for a means of rushing or running away. The most famous quiver of the Archer, the rare Quiver of Thunder from the Eye of the Storm or Greater Nature Sprites from Ancients, is the most consistent way of applying the rare Dazed status effect. Dazed halves the bullet count of an enemy's shot pattern, effectively making dodging trivial for the team. Invaluable for the team as lots of high-end enemies will become immune to the stunned effect from the knight, providing breathing room for where the knight may fail, although, beware that some endgame bosses are resistant to this quiver. For the leather armors, a ranger like the Archer can always go for the Hydra skin armor for its moderate dexterity and defense. Although its stats may be lacking, there are also other leather armors that the Archer can go for. For survival-based armor, you would want to go for the luminous armor that drops from the Crystal Caverns PNs. It boasts high health bonuses, making it great against endgame bosses that often fire armor-piercing shots. If you find the Fungal and Crystal Caverns intimidating, you can always try the mid-game set-tiered armors like the Wraith's Brigandine from the Cursed Library, Ornate Armor from the Ancient Ruins Peons, Hallowed Hide from the Manor of the Immortals Peons, especially when paired with their set's ring. Damage-centric armors like the Hollyhock Hide from the Magic Woods, the Hayaj Tenye from Superior Thicket and the Centaur's Shielding from Chief Baser helps amplify the damage capabilities of the Archer. Although they often sacrifice defense for offense, you should use these when it's safe to do so or when damage becomes a priority. For rings, any general-purpose HP-based ring such as the Ring of Exalted Health serves well for the Archer. However, the Archer has the fortunate position to have two set pieces drop from fairly early to mid-game dungeons. The Treasure Archer set mainly in the Ancient Ruins and the Spectral Archer sets between the Cursed Library. The weapons they hold are fairly powerful with their quivers and armors supportive in survival and team strategies. Using these items alone can be effective, but when combined offer additional stat buffs that will help your journey. Now that you know how to play the Archer, go out there and paralyze some gods.